Millions of Americans don't care about January 6th. They don't care that Trump laid siege to our Capitol. And why? There are millions of Americans who believe the people inside the Capitol building that day don't care about ordinary Americans. I hate to tell you this, but there are what I call the Luigi Mangione voter. The Luigi Mangione voter. What do I mean by that? Well, on December 4th, 2024, at 6:46 a.m. in Midtown Manhattan, the CEO of United Healthcare was shot to death on the sidewalk as he was making his way to address a conference of United Health investors. Brian Thompson, husband, father, died that day. Tragedy. Nobody should be gunned down in the streets. Again, nobody has more rage for health insurance executives than I do. I just don't think the solution is violence. I believe America's for-profit health sector, the health insurance sector, commits violent acts of murder in the hundreds each day through what Hannah Arendt would call the banality of evil. There are so many layers to our for-profit health insurance industry. Each human cog in the wheel is given plausible deniability. They're able to sleep at night because they personally never feel responsibility for the child who would still be alive today if United Healthcare didn't drag its feet on purpose when it came to approving an operation or a medication. You can't pinpoint one specific person at a health insurance company to blame. SWAT teams, they'll bring in, or a firing squad, they'll fill the guns with blanks except for one bullet. Nobody knows who has the real bullet, so none of the shooters have to worry that they're the ones who fired the kill shot. And that's kind of how the for-profit health insurance business works. Nobody knows if they've got the bullet. Most of them think, I'm just firing blanks, I'm just doing my job, I'm just shuffling paperwork and saying no. But they can sleep at night because nobody knows who fired the kill shot. So yes, I see our for-profit health insurance industry as a form of killing, but I'm opposed to killing in all its manifestations, which means I'm against capital punishment and vigilantism. I don't believe anyone deserves to be killed. So whoever killed Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, should be thrown in prison for the rest of his life. Luigi Mangione was arrested and charged with that crime. Prosecutors are going for the death penalty, not through lethal injection. This time they want to kill him by putting Luigi on a United Healthcare platinum plan. And I think that's cruel and unusual. That's how they plan to kill him. Now, you remember how people reacted to Luigi Mangione? You saw the internet. You saw the people who cheered him at his arraignment, who stood outside his court states cheering him, free Luigi. If he's guilty, he's not deserving of any accolades. But it might be worth asking, why are there so many people out there, millions, who not only make apologies for Mangione, but say they were glad he did it, if he did it. So I would never ask victims of domestic violence, victims of hate crimes, never ask them to ask themselves what they did to precipitate the violence. And I wouldn't ask Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, who was shot to death. I wouldn't ask him. I wouldn't ask the members of Congress, the police officers on January 6th, to consider what they did to precipitate the violence against them. But I would ask health insurance executives, Democrats, and members of Congress, I would ask them to consider why millions of Americans are okay with both January 6th and the killing of a health insurance executive. And I think the two are related. Why do so many people view Donald Trump vis-a-vis January 6th and Luigi Mangione vis-a-vis United Healthcare? He's the alleged killer of Brian Thompson. Why do so many Americans view Donald Trump and Luigi Mangione as folk heroes? Again, both despicable men. They both belong in prison. If Mangione is guilty, we know Trump is guilty. They are not heroes. But what is wrong with Congress, with its approval rating? What is wrong with Congress that it was hovering at a 15% approval rating on January 6th 2021. What is wrong with our for-profit health insurance sector that millions of people cheered for the killer of that United Healthcare CEO? I mean, we don't know if it was Luigi Mangione, but people cheered for whoever killed Brian Thompson. I ask this because I am concerned with politics. Politics isn't morality. There are components to politics that include morality, but politics is winning over the American mind, tapping into what voters think, what they believe, what they feel, what they know they feel, what they don't know that they feel, and what they only admit to themselves in the privacy of a voting booth. And it's that last one that confounds pollsters. That's what makes it so hard to get it right if you're a pollster. What does somebody only admit to themselves, and not a pollster? What do they admit to themselves in the privacy of a voting booth? There are reasons people voted for Trump, and they would never confess the reason to their priest, let alone themselves. It's hard to measure that vote. I call these people the Luigi Mangione voter. They will never admit to others, sometimes even to themselves, what they really think about Luigi Mangione or Congress. Most of these Luigi Mangione voters adamantly insist you never shoot a health insurance executive, and they believe that. They believe that, and so they have an opportunity to vote in private on that. So no candidate is running on kill all health insurance executives. I know Republicans want you to believe the new mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, campaigned on that promise, but nobody is running on kill all health insurance executives. But if we held a vote, if there were a national referendum on should health insurance CEOs be killed, I can assure you millions of Americans would insist this is a barbarity, that we're even considering it. Okay, millions would insist. But let me ask you, how many Americans would secretly vote yes? In January of 2025, right after the shooting and Mangione's arrest, there were quite a lot of polls showing Mangione with an approval rating below 20%. People had an approval rating below 20%. Let me put it another way. Luigi Mangione is more popular than Congress. Not as popular as Trump or the Supreme Court, but more popular than Congress. So if we had a referendum asking America, should health insurance CEOs be killed, it would be defeated resoundingly. But how many millions of Americans would secretly vote in favor of that, the same way millions of Americans would say openly that Trump was a disgrace for what he did on January 6th, but when it came time to walk into the booth and cast a ballot, they secretly voted for him again. The thing about Trump is he didn't ask voters to forget January 6th. He ran last year on January 6th. He called the January 6ers patriots, political prisoners, and opened his rallies with a recording of the national anthem sung by the J6 prison choir who were being held inside a Washington jail. In March of 2023, their iteration of the Star-Spangled Banner was the most downloaded song in America. January 6th didn't cost Trump the election. In fact, I think it helped him win because millions and millions of Americans despise our government. And some secretly, some not so secretly, view the January 6ers as heroes. Again, I am opposed to violence in all its manifestations, physical, verbal, psychological. There is no excuse for violence. But according to some polling of college students in January of 2025, this was a year ago, this was conducted by Generation Lab, 45% of the college students polled sympathized more with Mangione than the man he allegedly shot, and half viewed Mangione favorably. Half the college students polled said, while I don't necessarily agree with what he did, what he's been charged with, I view him favorably. And 48% said the act was justified. Nearly half of college students polled a year ago by Generation Lab, nearly half said that Mangione, if he did it, was justified in killing the CEO of United Healthcare.